Hi, welcome back. Today I'm going to review my library haul for this week. I have about 12 books here that I read to my 3-month-old daughter. I'm going to go through them starting with my favorite and working my way through the list. I'm just going to share with you what I appreciated about each of the books, as well as some notes and thoughts about what maybe I wish were different in some of the books. But starting off with my favorite, I don't really have much of anything that I would change. This is an amazing book, Violet and the Crumbs. And what I really appreciate about this story is that it draws you into a very particular issue, which is basically celiac disease and children who need to live with a gluten-free diet. But the reason that I'd recommend this to everyone is that there's something in this story for you. One is, certainly if you are one of the people living with celiac disease, it gives you some idea about how you can be confident about asserting yourself to let people know what you need so that you can be safe. But to everyone else who might have friends who have celiac disease, I think this is a really good educational book so that you can be more mindful of them. And so that you can basically be a better neighbor and friend to people who need to be gluten-free. And finally, I would just say to any kid reading this book, it doesn't read like some kind of manual or anything like that. It is a great story about a girl who basically feels constantly embarrassed because of some of her unique needs. And then she finds herself feeling really brave about telling people, hey, don't feed bread to the ducks because that is really harmful for them. Or, watch, hedgehogs can't eat bread either. And then basically she finds herself asserting herself and standing up for animals. And then she realizes, wait, maybe I need to stand up for myself too. And then she has to think about what would that look like. And so she has an idea to basically help teach her friends about how to help her and other people with her condition to be safe, right? So she teaches them the best practices. So it's really a story about a girl who learns to be brave and to stand up for others and to stand up for herself. And I think that's a universal story. It's not just about people with celiac disease. Something really interesting too that I learned from the note in the back of this book is that actually 1 in 100 people have celiac disease and really should be gluten-free for their own safety, but only 1 in 500 people are diagnosed and are actively living a gluten-free lifestyle. So that was an eye-popping quote to me. I actually have a second cousin who has this condition, and she didn't know what was wrong with her, and her family and doctors didn't either, because to a lot of people this is a really rare condition, but it turns out it is a lot more common than you might think. So anyway, good story, and I learned a lot from it, and I think my kid would as well. She's 3 months old right now, so obviously she's going to have to reread some of these books later. Next story I want to share with you is I absolutely positively love My Spots. And this is about a girl who has a skin condition where basically, she has different pigmentation on different parts of her body, and it creates what she calls her beauty marks. And so this is a story really about learning to love yourself and feeling confident about yourself. This condition is called vitiligo, and I didn't really know what it was called. I knew of the condition, but I didn't know what it was called. So I learned a thing or two as well from reading this story. I also want to just compliment, you see these really clear illustrations. I did some research and really high contrast illustrations, clear facial expressions, clear lines. These are things that help a young child, a really young child, to understand stories. Because when you have a really young reader, they can't necessarily interpret things that feel a little too abstract or too much, I want to say brushwork or whatever. But basically, a story like this has a style of illustrations that is kind of optimal for that really young class of readers, the 1-year-olds, the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds. So I loved it. And I love that I learned a little something from it, including how to pronounce vitiligo. I do wish that authors would consider putting in parentheses underneath a new word like that, the simple pronunciation guide. Because when I read it initially, I was saying vitiligo, vitiligo. Anyway, Next up is Soul Food Sunday. So this book stood out for a few reasons, but the main thing I want to just highlight is I felt truly, as I was reading it, I felt like I was hearing this kid's granny teaching him how to cook. I could just hear her voice. I could feel maybe what it was like in the kitchen, just from these really rich oil paintings. It felt like a very personal story and personal experience, and I felt like I was a part of this kid's world. Look at the perspective on some of these illustrations too. You feel like you're really at the eye level of the kid. And it's a story that it's not too short. Sometimes I feel like you get into a story and 4 minutes later you're done. This one actually gives you something. I forget if it's a 10 or 15 minute read, but it takes you through preparing a whole meal, a whole soul food style meal. So I love this. It's called Soul Food Sunday. I'd recommend this. It's such a fun read. My partner loves cooking, so anything with food in it is going to rank very high for her, and this was in her top 2 or 3. Next, I have a book called Dark on Light, and this book is very good for that, that thing I mentioned earlier about how young kids really need like strong contrast in illustrations. They need clear outlines and stuff. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous, but they're also readable to a young child. The story itself is really kind of like a word, like a poem, basically. I love that there's little things that you can notice, like you see on this illustration, there's like a little rat hiding under the tree. And another page, there's going to be, wow, that's a great illustration of a starry night. On most of these pages, there's like something hidden for you to notice. So on this page, it's snails that you can notice hiding in these leaves. So really cute. It's really just about kids who go on an adventure to basically find their dog that I guess is lost. But it's about that magical experience of going out into the forest at night and discovering things. Illustrations are beautiful. The words, the poem is also beautiful. So that's Dark on Light. Now my next book up is Leo and Leia, and this is a book that I think is about 2 autistic kids. One kid is Leo, and Leo loves counting. He's counting the squirrels, 1, 2, 3, or he's counting the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a good opportunity to teach your kid numbers, perhaps. But I really liked once, Leia comes into the picture. So basically one day at school, his teacher introduces him to another kid, and this kid loves patterns. And they both find that on the playground they're very overwhelmed by like the amount of noise and activity of other kids. They both have a need to find peace, and so they find that together. And I just thought it was a very beautiful story about these 2 kids forming a bond and not feeling alone. And it's really just a charming story. Good clear illustrations as well. Next up is a map for Falasteen. And this, like those first few books, is also a book that I think teaches you about a world that you might not know about. And basically, the teacher at the start of the book asks everyone to like point to where you're from on the map. And then this girl says, Palestine's not on the map. And the teacher says, well, that's because it's not a real place. And so then she goes to her family and she's asking him, why isn't Palestine on the map? And then their family gives her an explanation of what happened to Palestinians. So I think this is a really, it's an important story to me to include in bringing really sad stories to my daughter as well. Because like this is a part of life, and this is also a part of our culture, and the work that America has done to other people. And so I think it's not heavy-handed because of the story like this. I remember I even saw this on the shelf and I thought, well, I know what that book's about, but do I really want to get into that with my girl? I know she's 3 months old right now, so she can't necessarily even understand all the words that I'm saying, but it is a story that I would feel really comfortable rereading to her as she gets older too, so that she can hear it and learn about this world that frankly isn't going to be commonly covered. Isn't going to be commonly covered and taught in school. I never learned about Palestine when I was in school, honestly. K through 12, it was never covered. Where the Wild Things Are is totally in contrast to that. Very simple story, obviously a very classic story. I was surprised almost when I read it, like just how simple it is, because I've heard the title for years and years, but it really is something you can just read in 5 minutes or something. I think the illustrations stand out, and the illustrations have helped make this a classic. Like just that kids' facial expressions and these really playful monster designs. They're adorable, right? They're really, really special. I guess this book was written about 60 years ago, and I do wonder if basically this was one of the early pioneers of the children's book genre. And so it really gained some fame and recognition because of what it was at that time. Today it reads as a cute story. I don't know that it would have, to me, if it were just written last year, I don't know if it would have really stood out because it is such a simple story. But I think it's still special. It's still an amazingly illustrated book. It's just such a simple story, you know. It's something you could really sum up in a few sentences. But moving on to the next one, Jazz Baby. This is a really fun book if you like to sing stories to your kids. I'll just give you an example of how I do a couple pages so you can see what it sounds like to read this to your kid. Grandpa toot toots, Granny sings scat, bitty boppin', baby goes rat-tat-tat. Mama sings high, Daddy sings low, snazzy jazzy baby sings go man go, go man go. So you can kind of have fun with this. You could probably, if your kids are a little bit older, they can sing back and forth to you. The illustrations are definitely very unique and entertaining. I thought this book just had a lot of style to it. So I love that. Go Baby. It's called Jazz Baby. Next up, I have Princess Arabella at the Museum. This one is definitely cute. I think one thing I wished for is that I wish that I got to know these characters a little bit better, or maybe that it just focused on one character and helped me get to know this character, that this character went on some kind of journey. But basically what the book is it's about a lot of different characters who go to the museum, and I think they ask about the different strange things that they're encountering. So I like that this book introduces kids to the world of a museum and helps them to maybe understand that they're going to see a lot of strange things at a museum, but that's part of the point of going to a museum. Next up, I have Bearnard's book, and this book is very meta. If you look at the cover carefully, you'll see Bearnard is actually reading Bearnard's book, and the story is basically that he gets an invitation from the Queen to be in his own book, and he's very excited about it, but he's also a little anxious about it. So he starts practicing for his book to make sure that he's ready. And then he finds out at the end of the story that the book is going to be about him practicing to be in his book. And so the Queen is very happy with the book that Bearnard has because it's about Bearnard. So it was such a strange story, such a strange concept, but it was cute. The illustration of the bear's obviously adorable. And that's Bearnard's book. These are the last two in my stack, and this one I have got to compliment The Day You Begin for having just really beautiful illustrations. Like, look at this girl here. My issue, I think, with this book, and the next one too, is that I feel that these are a little too general. Like, they don't really bring me into a specific character's world and show me that character going on some journey or learning something or asking some questions and getting some answers, or being brave and doing something. It's more just a general sense of advice that's given to you. So I'll give you an example here. This one's also pretty long. It's like, you'll wonder how she doesn't see the rice beneath the meat and kimchi. You'll wonder why she doesn't remember that rice is the most popular food in the world. There will be times when the climbing bars are too high, the run is too fast and too far, the game isn't one you can ever really play. And I'm like, what is this book about? I feel like it's sort of thematic. I can see that, but I feel like I more appreciate those stories that are you know, like there's a structure to it. There's a linearity to it. It's a character setting out to do something and doing that and learning from it, or exploring something. And I just feel like sometimes these books have too general of themes and too general of advice. But I do hate to necessarily criticize, because that might be the perfect book for someone out there. I guess the story is fuzzy to me what it's about, but I think it's about, what would it be about? I suppose it's about, this is the day you begin to find the places inside your laughter and your lunches, your books, your travels, your stories, where every new friend has something a little like you and something else so fabulously not quite like you at all. So I'm still a little puzzled. Like, what does it mean? And I've read it like twice now. But maybe that speaks to you, and it's not speaking to me. This last one is called Little Wonder. And this story has some really gorgeous illustrations, but the criticism that I would give it is that I think that these illustrations are a little too abstract for a young child to understand. I asked ChatGPT, I took a photo of the illustrations and asked, you know, would these be clear to a young kid if they're like 2 years old or 1 year old? And the answer was no, they wouldn't, because the illustrations aren't like recognizable type things that a kid would be able to see the emotion. There's not as clear of line work, or the illustrations feel a little sketchy, a little abstract. They're not concrete enough for a really young kid to know what's going on. So given that, it might be the right book for a kid who's like 4 or 5 years old and is more comfortable with these more abstracted illustrations. But if you do want your kid to understand it really well, really early, then you might want to look for one of those books that does have just clear expressions or more distinct figures and stuff. My other issue with this book is that I think that some of the messaging is, again, very general and very vague. So it's like, there will be days where you'll find hidden pathways that lead to wonderful treasures. Wherever you go, you'll meet friends of all kinds. You'll make music, you'll make bubbles, you'll make the rules up as you go. You'll reach higher than you ever imagined to find that your world is boundless. So I felt like that kind of thing. My partner felt the same way too. We just felt like it's so general. And now that we've read a decent number of books, we immediately picked it up. We're like, oh, it's another of those books that's just like giving you these kind of generalized words of encouragement to your kid. And maybe that is the right story to read to your kid. Honestly, it only takes 5 minutes to read any of these books to your kid. So you could just get your kid a stack of books and read them all and don't worry too much about what's in it. But those first few books that I highlighted for you, these ones really just stood out because they dove into a really specific character and you learn something about their world. So I really respect those books that are willing to be unique and are willing to bring me in and teach me something about someone's experience and their personal experience. But that's my stack for this week. So I hope that you learned something interesting, or you found a book or two that you would like to add the next time you go to the library or Amazon. And If you'd like to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.